no one knows you better than yourself. So if you're just listening to advice but not ever understanding the why, then you're kind of like missing all those lessons that you could be teaching yourself. So I think for me, my big message of how I view success is when I'm educating myself first.
It's the Health in the Real World podcast. It's time to start the show with Chris Janke as your host. Here to give you everything that you need when it comes to fitness strategies. We keep it simple and easy. It's your roadmap to get healthy. You don't need equipment and you don't need a gym. Just the right strategies to get you fit and trim.
Welcome to Health in the Real World. We are here today with Emily Coffman. Emily, how's it going?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining today. So you're a former collegiate athlete. Tell us your story. What are you up to? Where have you been?
Yeah, so I was a coxswain for the rowing team in college. So for those that don't know what that position is, it's a small person at the back of the boat, not actually rowing, but I'm coaching, I'm steering. And as an athlete my whole life, and I thought that because I was an athlete, I must be healthy, right? Like I know how to take care of my body. I'm spending so many hours per week on my body, but it took me until after I had retired from the sport of being like, actually, I wasn't all that healthy. I was really going to the extremes with my diet. I was going to the extremes with what I was doing to my body, right? Like in the real world, no one works out for 4 hours a day. Like you just can't fit that in. And so it took me to, after retiring from sports, to be like, okay, how can I live a healthy lifestyle without dedicating my whole life to it? So, now I go to the gym, I do group fitness activities. I love group fitness classes. And then I started my own podcast, Girls Gone Healthy, to, just kind of stay in the fitness world, but not as much competition.
I love that. And that, one thing that I tell my clients is that consistency is more important than intensity. And you don't have to go to the gym and kill yourself when you do. It's like, let's start with baby steps. Let's go on a nice little walk. And I have to, this was funny when you said the coxswain is the little person in the back of the boat that's yelling. I was just thinking, oh, that's probably accurate. The little person, because all the other, they're rowing and they got these big old muscles and they're like, ah. Rowing is a hard sport. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're huge and I'm 5 foot, I'm tiny. No one could tell what position I was.
Right. And I guess you have to be small because you're not actually rowing. So you have to be, you're basically a voice box to keep them on rhythm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So so we're talking health in the real world. I love this theme. That's why I entitled my podcast Health in the Real World. I think it's just, you don't have to be a bodybuilder with 4% body fat in order to be healthy. And in fact, we know that's not healthy. When somebody asks you, maybe they're not healthy, when they ask you like, hey, Emily, what do I do? What's my first step to get healthy? What do you tell them?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of the time we think, when we're getting healthy, it's going to be this health kick where we have to change our lives around and start doing all these things differently. And it's not so much like physical changes that we need to happen, but more mental shifts of, okay, you don't need to go to the gym and do a 45-minute like cardio workout for that to count. Like going for a walk can count as movement. You just need more movement. And then same thing with nutrition, right? You don't need to follow a strict diet. You don't have to pick up keto or whatever else. You can just make little shifts of how can I add in more fiber? How can I add in this, right? Like thinking about what you can start adding in your life. And so I think that's a really simple way. And a lot of times people are like, oh, like I'm not doing enough, right? I know that I was always stuck in that mindset of I should be doing more. And it's like, actually, no, like it's the little things that will like keep that needle moving.
Yeah. It can't be that easy. It can't be that easy. Yeah. Anytime somebody says that to me, I'll say, all right, look, you might be right. You might be right that you need to do this, and this, but take a breath. And I want you to just drink, X amount of water every day for the next 2 weeks. And if you can do that, then we can add one more thing on top of that. And if you can do that second thing, then we'll add a third thing on top. So it's not so like, I have to do this and, a 400-point checklist every single day in order to get healthy, right?
Yeah, like you don't need to add everything at once. And that's also where you hear the term a lot, oh, I've fallen off the wagon. I've fallen off my plan. And I'm like, but what plan? Like, this is just your life. You have to eat. So like falling off the
Exactly.
wagon, like I don't know what that means. So I
Okay,
think that people just try to take too big of steps all at
right.
once.
You literally read my script because that is the next question. So you already answered it. I was going to say, what do you tell somebody when they fall off the wagon? There's no wagon. Like, don't worry about it. You're good, right?
Yeah, I guess another answer to that question though, it's like, okay, so say, you're going in a wrong direction, what you think of. Okay, so what's that like next thing you can do, right? You don't have to wait until the next week or you don't have to
Right.
wait until you get in the gym again. Something simple like you said, okay, hydrate yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you feel guilty for whatever you just ate, okay, well, start hydrating, start moving, right? Just don't like dwell in it and be like, I fell off the wagon, I'm hopeless, blah, blah, blah. Like you start getting in your head. It's like, no, you can just turn that around, start with the positive habits again.
Or if it's like midnight and you're researching what is the best workout program in the world and it's midnight, it's like, yeah, I think you're going to benefit more if you just go to sleep, right? Instead of stay up all night worrying about what the best workout program is.
Yeah, and that goes right back to like do less. Like sometimes you really just need to do less and that will be healthier for you.
Yeah. So what is for you, let's say post college days where you are now, what is for you personally maybe the biggest struggle that you have with health and fitness, and what are some strategies you've used to overcome that?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest struggle was all these rules that I had for myself, especially being an athlete. I think that's where a lot of the rules came from, right? Like you can't eat this big of a meal before you work out, and then you can't eat sugar anytime besides for right after a workout, right? Like I had all
Right.
these rules, and some of them were for performance, so it made sense, but other times it's like, okay, well, I don't have performance anymore. I'm working a 9 to 5 job. Like, it doesn't matter as much that I'm strict about my nutrition. So, these rules that I had for myself, I had to start breaking because when I'm an athlete, I'd want every practice to be I'm performing my best, I'm giving 100%. But you don't need to give 100% at the gym every day for it to be beneficial.
Hmm.
You can go in and you can have shorter workouts. You can go in and maybe you're tired, maybe you're stressed, right? Like just go for a stress relief. It doesn't need to be hitting a PR every time. And so I think for me, once I started thinking to myself, like, where did this rule come from? Is it an actual health rule? Or was it a rule for me to be my best as a coxswain? Then I could kind of make it easier for myself.
Right. And I think you're touching on a really good point, the difference between health, which I think is very foundational, and then the next level, which would be fitness, which you want to be healthy before you try to get fit. And then the last level, which you're touching on because being a collegiate athlete is performance, right? That's like the next step above fitness, right? That's not just like, oh, I'm going in the gym and I'm putting in my time. That's like I have a certain performance expectation that I need to hit, which, like you said, there's a very small window of margin of error, right? I have to eat this supplement before I do. I have to eat this other supplement after. I have to get this much sleep, and all these things that go into that, and all these rules, like you said. And I would imagine, let me guess, your one rule for nutrition: eat when you're hungry. Is that a rule that you have now?
Now, oh yeah, that's
And
simple.
stop eating when you're not hungry anymore. That
Yep, listen to your hunger
literally,
cues.
that literally is enough for probably 99% of the population, right?
Mhm. Yeah, because we even try to overcomplicate that, right?
Yeah.
Like we try to put rules on when we can and can't eat, and I'm like, if it's not for performance, then I don't know why you're doing it. Like I don't.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's actually a really good point. If it's not for performance, there really are no rules. Like, people are on this intermittent fasting kick, and I just find it funny that I'm like, oh yeah, I've done that before. It's called you just woke up and you're not hungry, so you don't eat. And I might skip breakfast. I might even skip lunch, not because somebody told me to. It's just I'm just not hungry. It's right. It's really simple, right?
Mhm.
So this is great. I really like that you're also differentiating between performance and health. It's awesome, right?
Yeah,
Cool.
because there's two completely different mindsets, and a lot of people grow up with sports. That's their first
Yeah.
introduction to exercise. So you kind of have to remove them back of, okay, all movement can count.
Yeah.
All foods can fit. You have to get them kind of back to the basics there of the bottom that you're like talking about of health.
Right. Right. And and even this, I grew up playing sports as well. Basketball, baseball, soccer, one year of football. And I can honestly say that the good basketball practice, there's nothing healthy about it, right? Like I was wiped out after, absolutely starving, right? I could have eaten anything. Bruises all over my body because my coach says, you know, if you see a loose ball on the floor, you're gonna dive on the floor like a baseball player and grab that ball. And again, nothing healthy about it, right? So these things could not be further apart from each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Emily, I want to give you a chance to we're gonna broaden our perspective a little bit. So not so
Mhm.
much health fitness, but more life skills, values, things like that. If let's say a university calls you in and you're going to give the keynote speech at a graduation, and you're going to give a, let's say, 1 to 2 minute motivational speech to these 21, 22 year olds about life in general, about success concepts, different things that have served you in the past. uh, what would that speech look like?
Yeah, I guess for me, like I've seen most success overall. It also applies to health, but just overall, when I started educating myself instead of just following someone else's directions or following someone else's plans. Because I first saw this in nutrition when I started following these diets without knowing why. Right? I didn't know why I wanted to be filling up with certain things. And then same thing with, business or relationships, right? No one knows you better than yourself. So if you're just listening to advice but not ever understanding the why, then you're kind of like missing all those lessons that you could be teaching yourself. So I think for me, my big message of how I view success is when I'm educating myself first.
Great. Yeah, taking that responsibility and not just blindly following whoever is, you know, the authority or the expert, right?
Yeah, because they could be an
Yeah,
expert and their advice could be brilliant, but you want to be able to apply it to your life. Like, what if something goes a little bit different? What if you
right.
run into stuff? I don't know. I think that that's what really made a transformation for me, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so Emily, let people know how they can get a hold of you. Tell us your podcast name again, and if you have a website, any social media that you have.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, my podcast is called Girls Gone Healthy, available anywhere that podcasts are. And then connect with me on social media. Everything is just at Girls Gone Healthy Podcast. That's the website, Girls Gone Healthy Podcast. So, come check it out. I'd love to connect.
Okay, sounds good. Emily Coffman. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Thanks for listening to the Health in the Real World show. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. Visit mycorebalance.com to learn more.